Hi everyone, welcome to a new video from the Renaissance Man, also known as M.Refaat right here. I was just recently reading this book, Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, that completely blew me away, and that made me decide that I need to speak to you about this awesome writer, one of my favorite, Chuck Palahniuk. For those of you who don't know, he's the guy who wrote Fight Club, the one that they made the movie about, starring Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, and I don't think anybody has still not heard of that movie yet. Chuck Palahniuk has written about 19 books if you really count the recent coloring books that he's made. It's like short stories and made into coloring books because, you know, adult coloring books have been all the rave recently. And I own, of those like 18 books, I own about 12, and I've read 9 of them. So let me just run you quickly through those books, the ones I own, the ones I've read, to give you a quick idea about how good he is, the stories you might encounter if you start picking up books by Chuck Palahniuk, which I do encourage, and I hope you become an awesome fan and you also enjoy his books and his writing as much as I do. So let me start first with just a quick run through all the books. It's right here. These are 12 of the books that I own by Chuck Palahniuk. So to begin with, you've got Fight Club. And if you will notice also, I bought most of them in the same edition because, you know, I got this like OCD thing where I'll need to get all the books nice and neat. So Fight Club. Fight Club was his first book. Chuck Palahniuk writes in this style called transgressive. Which, to be honest, I didn't do that much research to understand what transgressive is, but it's violent, it's in your face, it's short sentences, quick, it doesn't pull any punches, and that's really awesome about his writing. Fight Club was his first novel. It was a breakthrough. It turned into a cult movie. To be honest, I think the movie is better than the book. And I know that's kind of blasphemy for most of people who are readers, and to actually say that a movie is better than the book. But that's in my opinion. Sorry fans of the book, sorry fans of people who like books more than movies, one of which I am. But the movie Fight Club, in my opinion, is better than the book. But it's really nice, it's interesting to read. If I want to get you hooked on Chuck Palahniuk's writing, I wouldn't recommend Fight Club to be the first book you read. I actually think this one is his best work, and I'll let you know why. Another novel he wrote is called Survivor. Survivor is about this man who was raised in a cult, where there's like religious cult, and he escapes. And when he escapes, he becomes a celebrity, and then everything that happens and his life, because he's a celebrity, and he narrates this life into a recording on a plane where he's the only passenger, and he's taking that commercial plane to, trying to crash it so he would die. That's the blurb. I'm not giving much away. So that story about Survivor, it's actually one of the good books that you could benefit from starting and getting you hooked on Chuck Palahniuk's writing. It's very gripping, it's really interesting, and recommended. Another one is one of his very famous also books, for at least among fans, is Invisible Monsters. Now here's the thing, one of the things that Chuck Palahniuk likes to do is he gets these kind of topics around us in society, and he goes really in depth in them, does a lot of research, and gets a lot of weird information about these everyday things around us that we don't know of, and he puts those stories in them and he drives them to their extreme. So that one is about fashion and plastic surgery and all those things that have to do with, beauty and how we see ourselves and the extents that we would go to achieve that. It's about this very famous kind of model who had an accident, had her face blown away, and she can't speak anymore. And so it looks into the past before that accident and things that happened after the accident, and it really goes into a lot of detail, and you get to learn a lot of weird and strange and extreme facts about that world. Also a very interesting read with a very surprising twist in the end. Another one is Choke, which was made into a movie. I don't think it was really successful. About this guy, I think Victor Mancini, who makes a living by pretending to choke on food in restaurants so that people would save him, and then because they save him, it's like they feel responsible for his life, so he starts getting, charity and lives off those people. It's not really one of the memorable stories, although it's supposedly one of the good ones. I can tell you that none of Chuck Palahniuk's books are boring, but some are more interesting than others. So that was Chuck. Then you got Lullaby, is about this lullaby that is sung to children to put them to sleep, but this man finds out that it actually has the power to instantly kill anybody who is listening to it or anybody who you direct it towards, because even if you think it when towards someone, like, I want to kill you with this lullaby, and you think it, and that person dies. So there was like this syndrome of mass numbers of children dying because of this lullaby, and then this guy finds out, and all the struggle between should he use it as a weapon? He needs to destroy all the books and all the records that contain this lullaby so no one would ever read it, but at the same time fighting the temptation to use it himself, and fighting the urge to think it when someone's like pisses him off or something. This one is one of the good ones. Unfortunately, I'm really bad with remembering plots and stuff, so it's the fact that I don't remember that many details about the books isn't because the books are bad, it's just because I read them a couple of years ago. Another one is Diary, and Diary is about this man who works in like painting and designing and doing all this interior work in people's kitchens, and then he dies, and then they find out that he was painting and leaving all these blocking out rooms in people's houses and boarding them up and building walls so nobody would find them, and people feel like entire rooms and parts of their house like disappeared. But and then when they tear down the walls, they find all these very aggressive messages and things inside, and then his wife gets tangled up in all that kind of stuff that he leaves behind. Honestly speaking, it was interesting as I read it. I don't really remember anything of it. I don't think it's that memorable. Not necessarily a recommendation to start with. This one here, called Nonfiction, very plain, just straightforward nonfiction, is some essays and articles that Chuck Palahniuk wrote about weird places he's been to in America and weird things he's seen. So it's like the other side of the research he's always doing about these weird and strange topics. Instead of putting them in novels, he just wrote a nonfiction book about it. Haven't read it yet, so I can't really say much about that. Haunted is a very interesting read. A lot of people didn't like Haunted, by the way. Haunted, the premise of Haunted is that it's 21 short stories, but inside a novel. So it's like this group of writers and this eccentric man who publishes an ad about a writer's retreat, and it takes place in this kind of abandoned theater that he boards up and closes up and everything, and they're completely isolated from the world, and they're locked, I think, from the outside, something like that, and they need to write their best work before they are released. I think it takes a month. So the novel is like scenes among them, and the horrors they descend into as they realize that they can't escape, and they run out of food and stuff like that for reasons that I will not spoil. But it gets really gory, and it gets really visceral. And then you see the the short stories they write. It's in there as like chapters. So it's mainly those 20 like novels and short stories, and they're linked by the overall theme of that writer's retreat. I liked it, to be honest. I don't remember all the short stories except for one. Very memorable one. It's called Guts. For those of you who haven't followed it, just Google Guts by Chuck Palahniuk. It's a short story that's actually very infamous for the fact that some people gagged, some people threw up, some people fainted when they first read it or heard it when he was reading it in public on a book tour. So I read it before reading the entire collection, and I did get queasy, and it was difficult to get through, I must admit. But and honestly, when you read it after a while, about when you finish it, you feel like, what was the point of going through that? What was the point of writing it? But if it's just an exercise in how someone using words can elicit physical feelings inside you, then he really did a good job. The collection as a whole, with the overarching theme, that one I did actually like. So it's got, conflicted opinions. It's up to you to decide if you want to read Haunted or not. Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk, sorry. Yep, that's it. And then he has two other books, which is Doomed and Damned. This is Doomed, this is Damned, but this is part one. Damned, then Doomed. Sorry for the mix-up. And this is about a teenage girl who dies and literally goes to hell. And the story is her adventures in hell with other misfits she meets in hell, trying to reach, the big honcho of that place, which is Satan or the devil himself. And then the second book follows the same protagonist as she haunts, I think, her family or her neighborhood on Halloween, and all the secrets about her past and about her family's past that she will uncover. I haven't read them yet, but they're actually two of the supposedly good books by Chuck Palahniuk that get a lot of good reviews on, Goodreads and Amazon. And finally, one of the last books he wrote is Make Something Up. This is a collection of short stories, no theme, no nothing. It's just a collection of short stories, and honestly, not necessarily, I don't recommend it as a beginning. I recommend it for fans who, it's like me, have to read everything by Chuck Palahniuk. But for someone who's, got a big, huge TBR pile and doesn't want to waste money or time, not necessarily start with this one. I would recommend reading Survivor. I would recommend reading Invisible Monsters. I would recommend reading Lullaby. Haunted, even if you're into that kind of stuff. But if you will not read any Chuck Palahniuk books except one, please read this. Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, an oral biography of Buster Casey. The protagonist's name is Buster Casey. Now, I don't want to give anything away about this book because it's brilliant. It's brilliantly written. The plot is brilliant. The twists are brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Read this book. It's about this man. And it follows after his death. Dies at a young age. And then it's an oral biography by everybody and other people who've met him and dealt with him, telling his story from childhood until the time of his death. And why he became the way he became. There's epidemics in there, there's adventure, there's aggressiveness, there's just weird stuff going on, and then they get explained in the end. And it's very smart, it's very intelligent, and it gets you thinking about a lot of things, and it definitely keeps you gripped. And it's written in a way that doesn't really reveal anything, and you just get really engaged with the characters and with Buster Casey or Buster Rant Casey himself. So that was a quick wrap for the books by Chuck Palahniuk that I do own, and the ones I have read, which are 9 out of these 12 out of a total about 18 books. He's written a sequel to Fight Club. It's kind of sequel, kind of prequel. It's got a lot of, different time zones and time periods going on there about Fight Club Part 2. So it is a sequel to Fight Club in graphic novel form. I don't think it's really as big as a hit as Fight Club, but it's out there if you want to read it. And then he also wrote one more nonfiction book that I know nothing about, and so you got that, and 2 coloring books for adults. One of them is in the form of a novella, and the other is a collection of short stories. So if you want to check out either of those, and if you like that thing about coloring books, you can do that. I hope you found the video interesting and entertaining. I hope you would find a new favorite author in Chuck Palahniuk, or at least you would enjoy some of his writing and pick up Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, because you will not regret it, hopefully. Thank you very much for following, and I'll see you again with a new video. Don't forget to subscribe to see the new videos, and check the other playlists for other non-book related videos on this channel. Thank you very much, and see you again soon.